Hello everyone, Thought Criminal 101 here. I wanted to talk about freedom and the importance of language. And to start off with, I'd like to read from George Orwell's novel 1984, from the appendix, which is titled The Principles of Newspeak. And then I'll talk about it. Newspeak was the official language of Oceania, and had been devised to meet the ideological needs of INSOC, or English Socialism. In the year 1984, there was not as yet anyone who used Newspeak as his sole means of communication, either in speech or writing. The leading articles in the Times were written in it, but this was a tour de force, which could only be carried out by a specialist. It was expected that Newspeak would have finally superseded Old Speak, or Standard English as we should call it, by the year 2050. Meanwhile, it gained ground steadily, all party members tending to use Newspeak words and grammatical constructions more and more in their everyday speech. The version in use in 1984 was embodied in the 9th and 10th editions of the Newspeak dictionary, was a provisional one, and contained many superfluous words and archaic formations which were due to be suppressed later. It is with the final perfected version, as embodied in the 11th edition of the dictionary, that we are concerned here. The purpose of Newspeak, and this is the important part, the really important part, the purpose of Newspeak was not only to provide a medium of expression for the worldview and mental habits proper to the devotees of INSOC, but to make all other modes of thought impossible. It was intended that when Newspeak had been adopted once and for all, and Old Speak forgotten, a heretical thought, that is, a thought diverging from the principles of INSOC, should be literally unthinkable, at least so far as thought is dependent on words. Its vocabulary was constructed as to give exact and often very subtle expression to every meaning that a party member could properly wish to express, while excluding all other meanings and also the possibilities of arriving at them by indirect methods. Okay, so George Orwell wrote this novel in 1948 and it was published in 1949, and it wasn't till about a year ago, yes, it's actually taken me that long to actually think about making a video about it, that I realised how prophetic a novel 1984 really is. And it's not the dystopian future thing, you know, that had been done before in Brave New World, for example. It wasn't the totalitarianism, it was the subtlety of how the totalitarianism was being put onto the people, not the brutality. I mean, there was brutality in it, of course, with Room 101 and the Fort Police and stuff like that. But the reason I read this appendix out was because that's the bit that struck me all those months ago, was how it's being used today and for the last, I don't know, 30 years plus. So I want to take the word Newspeak and I want to substitute it for political correctness, and I think you'll see where I'm going, and I think you'll see what George Orwell had seen. I don't know how. But I also wanted to talk about, obviously, because this video is called Freedom of Thought and the Importance of Language, I wanted to talk about how important language is, but not just, and I'm not talking about English as such, but that's my first language, so I am speaking about English, but probably most languages in the Western world. But what he was talking about was, if you destroy language, you destroy thought, and you destroy people's ability to express themselves or express complex ideas. And it's true. So I want to go back to the Elizabethan era and talk a little bit about Sir Francis Bacon. And there's people tend to be quite polarised about Sir Francis Bacon. Yes, he was a Rosicrucian, and yeah, he was involved in some dodgy occultic stuff and secret societies and things like that. But there's one thing that he did for this country that, well, I'm certainly grateful for, but it's being destroyed. And that was, he helped to unify our language and make it the richest language in the world. And that's not me being biased. English actually has the largest vocabulary by, I think, almost double, if not double, than the next largest vocabulary language in the world, which is, I think, Russian. And at the time, in the Elizabethan era, you could go 10 miles to another village and speak to people, and they wouldn't understand what you were saying, and you wouldn't understand them in return, because there were all kinds of languages being used, there were all kinds of dialects. And he wanted one language so that it could rival the French language, because he was very much inspired by the French theatre, French poetry, and French literature. And he accomplished that. But we need to protect it, because it's being eroded. And it's not just being eroded on TV and in the media and stuff, it's also being eroded because people are being very lazy. And I include myself in that. I need to think about what I'm saying a bit more carefully, take my time. Because if you want to express complex ideas, you need to exercise your linguistic abilities, your abilities with your own language. Your vocabulary needs to be improved, whereas in this day and age it's actually being lessened. People are, like, when people put messages on message boards or whatever, half the time there's no punctuation, words aren't being used in the correct way. And I'm not saying this as a fuddy-duddy or anything like that. I'm saying it because I actually believe that the way to control people's ability to express themselves is to control language and to dumb language down. Here's an example. How many times have you seen on someone writing something, someone sending a letter or an email or on a message board, where someone says something like, he should have said, instead of he should have said, and they're thinking, because of the abbreviation of should have, they think it sounds like of, not have, but it's an abbreviation because it's cut have down to its last two letters. And that's just an example, but that's a very meagre example, to be honest. But I just wanted us to talk about the importance of our language, and how we need to protect it, and we need to say, go against what's going on in the media and stuff, and not be dumbed down, not have our language diminished. So the only way we can do that is to actually do the opposite, and that's up to us individually. So that's all I've got to say. I wanted to keep this video this video short. It's not really a video as such, because it's just going to have background images, but anyway, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, the comment section's open. You're welcome to comment and say anything you want. That's kind of my point in many ways. And please subscribe to my channel, rate the video, and I'll talk to you again when I've got something to talk about. So thanks for listening. Bye-bye for now.